back. Trust you had an enjoyable lunch. Now, we will be kicking off this afternoon's session with another one of our Forum Sparks talks, one of our brief 15-minute TED Talk style talks. For this one, we'll be welcoming back to the stage a former Assistant Secretary General for the UN, His Excellency Dr. Yannick GLEMAREC. Dr. GLEMAREC, we welcome you now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. In this Forum Spark, I will address a question that some of you might have, which is, are the SDGs really achievable, or are they just meant to be inspirational? When the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development was approved in September 2015, it was hailed as a major diplomatic achievement. For the first time, humankind had a common plan for people, prosperity, the planet, and peace. However, a number of people wondered whether such an ambitious agenda with 17 goals, 169 targets, 232 indicators was truly achievable, or whether it was simply meant to be inspirational. Now, as mentioned yesterday during the introductory segment, if you look at global trends, we are not to achieve the SDGs by 2030. Let's look, for example, at education. Target 4.1 is to ensure universal primary and secondary education for every single girl, every single boy, and education that is free and of quality and equitable. According to UNESCO, we are not to achieve this target before 284. We are not doing much better when it comes to gender equality. For example, it will take us 50 years before we reach parity at the parliamentarian level in terms of political participation. And it could take us 170 years before we reach equal pay between women and men. When we look at sustainable energy, it could take us up to 50 more years. We might have 50 to 80 more years, but we might have to wait 50 to 80 years before we have universal electricity access. And according to some, we might have to wait for the middle of the 22nd century before we have universal access to clean cooking fuels. If we look at climate change, SDG 13, we need to cut greenhouse gas emission by 20% by 2030 in order to stand a chance to remain below 2 degrees Celsius. But right now we are going in the opposite direction. Last year we have increased greenhouse gas emission by 2.7%, not started to decrease it. And we can continue like this, on and on and on. But the one major reason why actually these global trends might not be what will drive our future is that we know that global trends are not a fatality. Global trends can be broken by policy, institutional, financial, business, technology, innovation. For example, one policy innovation. The limited stock company at the turn of the 19th century has enabled investors to pool resources and risk and finance all the railways, all the factories that have been driving our industrial revolution. And today, we know that we live in a time of unprecedented technological advancement. Digital information and communication technologies, material technology, biotechnology, genetic technology, robotics, energy technology, nanotechnology, to name only a few of them, all of them have the potential to transform our society. And over the next 12 years that remain for us to achieve the 2030 agenda, I believe that digital information and communication technologies are those who hold the greatest promise to break global trends and accelerate efforts toward the Sustainable Development Goal. Notably, digital technologies could enable us to address the two most critical challenges for me of the 2030 agenda. The first one, to align finance with sustainable development, and the second one, to meet the essential needs of those living at the bottom of the pyramid. Let's take one type of digital technology, sustainable digital finance. Sustainable digital finance can provide a vast amount of data at very, very low cost to investors to enable them to assess all the social and environmental risk associated with some type of risk. The investors of tomorrow will have a wealth of information that has nothing to do with the type of information they have today. And this information will enable them to anticipate a large array of different outcomes, social and environmental outcomes, and hopefully take much better decisions. Why is it important? We believe that to finance the SDGs, we will need between $3 to $5 trillion, depending on the different estimates. $3 to $5 trillion, it's 5% of the total assets under management by sovereign funds, by mutual funds, by pension funds. It's less than the annual increase in total assets under management that we should have from now to 2030. So clearly, it's not so much a problem of capital generation, it's a problem of getting the information to realign the investment toward sustainable development outcome. And that's the first thing that sustainable digital finance can deliver. Another one, new business model. And so, for example, thanks to mobile technology, today it's possible to provide electricity access to extremely poor people who do not have the possibility to provide any kind of upfront payment, simply by enabling new models such as pay-as-you-go model. Also, with sustainable digital finance, we could add $3.7 trillion to the world economy by enabling 1.6 of the 2 billion people who do not have a bank account today to basically become formal financial customers. So the prospect, the implication of what sustainable digital finance, to name only one type of digital technology, could do are simply gigantic. Now, does it mean that we can pack up and trust innovation to take care of the SDGs for us? Unfortunately, not. If history shows that innovation can break trends, history also shows that innovation is not preordained. For example, when the Clean Air Act was passed in the United States in 1970, everybody thought that thanks to technological innovation, all the air pollution problem of the United States would have been resolved within a decade. 50 years later, still half of the population of the United States live in areas where the air standards are not being met. And much worse, in addition to local air pollution problems, those we had in 1970, we are now facing gigantic global air pollution problems, such as the ozone layer destruction or climate change. So 50 years after the Clean Air Act, air pollution is a much, much bigger problem than what it used to be. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that innovation often can create unforeseen and problems on its own. For example, when the chlorofluorocarbon, the CFCs, were developed in the 20s, they were touted as self-substitute to the ammonia and sulfur refrigerant, to the explosive, highly toxic ammonia sulfur refrigerant that were used at that time. 50 years later, in 1970, we suddenly realized that the self-substitute were actually destroying the ozone layer and are a major contributor to climate change. And it's not only in the field of technology that you will discover a self-innovation that create bigger problems than what it was intended to solve. For example, simply look at the impact of financial innovation and on the financial crisis in 2008. Third thing with innovation is that it does not benefit everybody equally, does not benefit the poor and the rich equally, does not benefit women and men equally. And for example, for the 1 billion people who do not have access to electricity, the second industrialization could as well have never happened. We know also that women are very likely, poor women are very likely to be bypassed by digital technologies. First, because of the digital gap. They are 14% less likely to own a mobile. They are 30 to 50% less likely to use internet for income generation. But also because they are much less likely to have application that meets our specific needs. And one of the reasons is because only 6% of the app developers are women. And so innovation has a lot of potential, but that will not obligatorily deliver the goods because it's not preordained. It can create new unforeseen problems of its own, and it does not benefit everybody alike. And here comes the role of public policy. In order to convert a technology into a solution, we will need smart policies. There are at least two different types of policy changes that we will be needing. The first one has to do with basically coming with totally new, out-of-the-box policies to address totally new technological development. Yesterday, during the introductory segment, I mentioned driverless car. It's a new, extremely complex technology that will require a totally new type of policy. And for this kind of complex policy development, international cooperation will be extremely important. It will be important to exchange information, check notes, and make sure that we have a harmonized approach. One starting point for this kind of new complex policies is, for example, the high-level political forum. Countries, as part of the follow-up for the 2030 agenda, are invited to submit voluntary national review of their progress. Since the inception of this review in 2016, 102 countries have submitted a voluntary national review, and 41 more are to do it in 2019. So we have 143 countries. And it's a huge body of literature that can start a major discussion. I've read the VNR of the United Arab Emirates that was submitted in 2018. It's an extremely good document that I would recommend everybody to read, and that's the type of information. It contains a lot of information that should be of value to other countries. So that's the first type of policy, and the need for international cooperation is recognized in target 1714 of the SDGs on the need to promote policy coherence. Another type of policies is that it's not regulatory extremely complex. It's not about coming up with new policies, but it's ensuring that the existing policies will benefit everybody alike. And there, one option, for example, is to look at every single policy and take an income and gender differentiated approach and try to figure out what will be the impact of the policy on the poor, what will be the impact of the policy on women, on any other group that might not be fully served by these new policies, and basically amend them, tweak them, to make sure that they serve everybody alike. So today, policymakers have a key challenge. If we go back to the initial question of my forum Spark. Are the SDGs achievable or just inspirational? They have to be achievable. The price that we will have to pay, not to equip with skills and provide jobs to the largest cohort of youth in history that we have today, the price that we will have to pay to not reduce our greenhouse gas emission will be unbearable. We will create a world we do not to live in. So they have to be achievable. And to be achievable, we will need policymakers that will be able to ensure that we have the type of integrated, coherent policies to align innovation with societal goods. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for that clear and concise message. We are now moving on to our final high-level panel of this forum, and it's about setting these SDGs and implementing them into national criteria. Now, we have an important message to give to you for this panel, please. A lot of you will be familiar with Chatham House rules when you go to different forums and conferences, and that is basically what's applying here. We know we've been encouraging you to use your phones throughout the forum, and you've taken videos and photographs of the stage and the speakers, and we fully encourage that. Just now, for this panel, we're asking that you don't, please, if possible, put your phones away and just sit and enjoy the discussion that is being had. So just to be clear, no photographs or videos of the panelists or of the next discussion, please. My colleague is now going to repeat this information in Arabic, just to be clear.
حضورنا الكريم يمنع منعاً باتاً التقاط الصور أو استخدام الهاتف لالتقاط مقاطع الفيديو خلال الجلسة القادمة وطوال مدة انعقاد هذه الجلسة، ويرجى الالتزام تماماً باتباع هذه التعليمات وبصورة مطلقة.
Thank you. And with that, we will now invite the moderator and the panelists to the stage, and we'll also be playing a brief video for some context. Thank you.
Go ahead. وين ما بتحبي